Well, hello, my beautiful YouTube family. Thank you for joining me for this series where we're going to be looking at the sun through all the signs and houses. Looking at a sign and a house each week for the next 12 weeks. But before we get into this week's sign and house, what is the sun all about? Well, it's how we choose to build our kingdom in this earthly existence. For most people, this is usually done through a career and through some kind of worldly achievements. The sun represents that in a general sense in the horoscope. There are other factors that we look at as well when we're doing like a career reading or something like that, but the sun is always a key player. The sun is also how we choose to identify ourselves. You know, maybe if we have the sun in the 6th house, we will identify ourselves as a helper, somebody who fixes things, solves problems for others. Perhaps if we have the sun in the 9th house, we might identify ourselves as a wisdom giver, someone with a lot of knowledge. Maybe if we have the sun in the 1st house, we might see ourselves as something of a hero in the world, here to make a change, here to make a difference in the world. Remember though that these are stories that are given to us by, let's say, our ego. The sun actually represents our ego. And so these can sometimes be stories that we buy into for ego identification as well. The sun ruling our identity and ruling our egoic self as well. Now, the sun is also our self-confidence. And so it's where we need to focus our energy in order to grow our self-confidence. For example, if you have the sun in the 11th house, that is saying that if you want to increase your self-confidence in the world, establish greater networks, build your friendship circles, and you will grow your own personal self-confidence as well. You might even get a sense of self-confidence through being a great friend to somebody too. The sun is the natural ruler of the sign of Leo, and they're a little bit the same in their energies in a sense. You know, they're both fun energies, they're both playful, they're both creative, they're both glamorous, and it's all about being the best. Wherever Leo sits is all about where am I the king, the best. And the same with the sun. Where does the sun sit? It's all about being the best. It's all about shining brightly in the world. The sun is like a superstar energy. It's a diva kind of energy, the famous person, the king, the queen. All of us have a little bit of solar energy going on. We've all got the sun somewhere in the chart. Some people are expressing it right out there for the whole world to see, and some people are keeping their diva energy a bit to themselves, but it's still there. Everyone is a king or queen in their own way in some realm in life. The sun is the reminder in the chart of our own superstar nature. And it also reminds us, well, at least I get reminded when I look at my sun, that other people have a right to be a superstar too, to shine their light, to shine their energy in some way in the world. And I'm not here to usurp other people's right to be a king or queen in their own way, in their own manner. I am only here to shine my light in the manner that I'm called to do so. The sun's placement also shows us, therefore, where we shine, For example, sun in the 6th house might indicate you shine best by helping other people, by fixing problems for other people, finding solutions in life for other people. The sun in the 2nd house might show that you can really shine in financial matters or in some sort of creation of self-sufficiency in some way. The sun in the 10th house obviously is a very strong place. The sun is at the highest point in the sky when the sun is in the 10th house, and usually means you're born at midday. And therefore, when the sun is in the 10th house, we can shine in career. We can shine in worldly achievements, in our reputation. So that's the sun energy, a bit in a nutshell. It is the most creative planet. Now, no planet has exclusive rights to creativity, but when it comes to creative intelligence, the sun does sort of have a leading role to play, obviously. It is the giver of vitality. If you think about as above, so below, the old Hermetic principle, if we have no sun, we have no life in the solar system. We'll be sitting on Earth, it would be completely dark, we wouldn't even be able to see the moon or the other planets or each other. There would be no light, no life, nada, nothing. So the vitality that we experience comes from the sun. Our vitality as individuals is seen through the placement of the sun and its good or bad aspects in our natal chart. Again, as above, so below, the sun is illuminating, giving light as well as vitality and growth. It's giving light and it's giving illumination, as I said. So it is actually connected to our ability to see, literally and figuratively. And often people with, just a little tidbit for you, people with the sun in the first house in their childhood will often tend to need glasses or may have some sort of eye issue until they sort of come into their own in latter life, and they may not need glasses when they're older. So to be able to see in the house of the body, sun in the first house can sometimes indicate a need for glasses or that there are eye issues. And hence I'm wearing my glasses for this series because I'm getting older and my eyes need a bit of support, so hence glasses. So the sun, just to wrap up what it's all about, is also representative of fathers and father figures generally, and their influence or no influence in our lives. The sun in the 12th house may well represent that the father figure in a person's life might have been absent or missing or not around very much or disengaged or something like that. So in a nutshell, the sun is the symbol of the present you in this incarnation, the you and your role in this particular lifetime. How you envision yourself is the sun, how you identify yourself, what you aspire to be, your outer self, the self you give to the world, and how you want others to see you. That is what the sun is all about. And I should also add, the sun rules the color gold. Hence, I've got my gold top on. So in this series, we're going to be, as I said, going through each sign and each house that corresponds to the sign and looking at the characteristics that the sun gives when it's in each of those placements, how we can shine, how we can generate our self-confidence in these areas of life. And without further ado, let's dive right in to our sun, house and sign placements. So how do we find out if we have the sun in the 8th house or in the sign of Scorpio? Well, here's an example here, and we're just using Aries rising as an illustration here. So the arrow is in the Aries rising area of the chart. Your AC would be in Aries if this was the case for you. And the sun, as we can see here, is in the sign of Scorpio. So that's all you've got to look for is it in the sign of Scorpio. But if you're looking for the sun in the 8th house, you'll need to count 8 signs from the rising sign. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We'll put it in the 8th house. Now you can have that 8th house placement in any sign at all, and with any rising sign, but the way to find out if you have it in the 8th house is simply to count 8 signs from the ascendant. We're going to start with the sun in Scorpio. I'm going to look at that first, and then we're going to look at the sun in the 8th house. Now, the sun is our identity, how we identify ourselves, how we show up in the world. So it's really the I am center of our chart. And in the sign of Scorpio, we might identify ourselves as I am secretive, I am dangerous, I am penetrating, I am deadly, I am deep, I am an introvert even. I am someone who gets to the bottom of things. I am a healer. I can transform myself. These are some of the I am statements that we might feel are pertinent in the sign of Scorpio. As we know, the sun is in the center of the solar system, and when it's in the sign of Scorpio, we might seek to be the center of some scorpionic kinds of expressions. So we might seek to have a central role or a leadership role in some secret organization, perhaps, or in an occult subculture, perhaps. Maybe to be the center of some mystery might be a part of our life journey, and maybe we might identify with that in some way. We might identify ourselves or see ourselves in the center of some edgy, exhilarating experience. We're always taking skydiving, or we're always, bungee jumping or something, or we're doing something exhilarating in our lives, and we're always at the center of those sorts of risky, kind of dangerous, let's call them, actions. We know that the sun represents also our careers in general, and in the sign of Scorpio, it might mean that we might have careers that are very scorpionic. We might be a sex therapist or an insurance agent. We might be an administrator of wills and legal documents to do with inheritances. We might be a mortician, we might be an undertaker, we might be a spy, we might be a real James Bond kind of a person, a criminologist, somebody who studies psychology and the criminal mind, those sorts of people who are interested in those sorts of things, investigations, getting to the bottom of things, understanding the root cause of things. Any fields of occupation that are in those territories will also really suit people with the sun in Scorpio. Now, the sun is also where we shine, and you might really shine in a crisis when you have the sun in Scorpio, because the Scorpio is the energy of transformation through extremes, through crisis circumstances. So you might shine as a emergency room doctor, or in a surgical situation where the pressure's on and the crisis, if it doesn't go well, this operation's going to harm the patient, so you're really under pressure. Those kinds of circumstances might be where you really shine. You might shine, as a fireman or an SES rescuer. Those kinds of circumstances would also apply. But you might also shine in realms where deep transformation is required. And remember, I said that Scorpio is healing, and you can identify as a healer. So, anywhere where you can help others transform, or whether you're transforming yourself, whether there's some sort of regeneration that's happening and renovation that's happening. Quite literally, you might shine as a renovator, right? Renovator of bodies, somebody who's a Botox injector might be seen with the placement of the sun in Scorpio, or renovation of houses, renovation of cars. Those sorts of things might be where you really shine in the world. Remember that the sun is also representative of our confidence, so you might get your confidence from those fields as well, where you can really shine and show up in the world with your expertise. This is a placement for a very charismatic kind of leader, and be warned, there's a shadow side to this, a very manipulative kind of leader, someone who coerces, even someone who could be tyrannical if left unchecked, and if the sun in Scorpio has very difficult aspects to it, say from Saturn or Pluto. A leader with this sort of position we might see tending to have, 9 lives. We think that they're down for the count, but no, they come back again. And they try again, and they get into power again. There's this regenerative quality to leaders who have the sun in Scorpio. And you can be like this too if you have the sun in Scorpio. You might regenerate yourself many, many times in life. Come crashing down and then build yourself back up, lift yourself up from by the bootstraps, and transform your life yet again. As a leader, other people will be drawn to you. Like there's this magnetic pull, this mesmerizing influence in the sign of Scorpio, and people will be drawn to this magnetic style of leadership that you have. You'll also be someone who has brilliant creative psychological insights. Remember, the sun is such a creative planet that it gives that expression. However, when it's in Scorpio, things can be a bit more behind the scenes. So your pinpointed psychological analysis can be unfolding sort of behind the scenes. You're not putting it out there to the world. You're just assessing and making those judgment calls about psychology and what have you of the people around you, or how to manipulate the crowd, or whatever it is that you're making those deep assessments, and you'll keep them to yourself. You'll use them for good or for ill, but that you'll tend to keep them to yourself. Remember that the sun is where we like to receive praise, and we want adoration, and we want to get respect, and so on, all those solar qualities of from appreciation. And so it's directed for you guys to the sign of Scorpio, and so you want recognition for scorpionic things, for your deep psychological insights, for your ability to research and come up with solutions and see things that other people can't see connections, see synchronicities, for your depth, for your ability to control yourself and your emotions, and to control your life circumstances even. You might want recognition for those kinds of things. You might crave recognition for your deep emotional sensitivity as well. There's this wonderful power that Scorpio people have to really understand where others are coming from, to understand their motivations, and to pick up on the emotional energy of other people. And so, you may want recognition for that, but If you don't get recognition for that, the sun here is going to give you the power to creatively understand those motivations of other people. Part of your life journey is that you will be called to go through the underworld in some way, Scorpio sun people. You will be called to transform your life, yourself, your image, your identity, and how you identify yourself. This is part of the journey for sun in Scorpio people. You will experience this. When your power gets taken away, it's going to feel really difficult, really hard for you, because it is such a source of your confidence. But when your power, Scorpio's power, is taken away, it's going to be this regenerative opportunity for you to re-identify yourself and to create a new image. So don't see it as a loss, see it as an opportunity to re-emerge like the proverbial phoenix from the ashes. Remember also that the sun is the representation in our charts, one of the representations, there are others, of the father figure in our lives. And so your father may have been quite scorpionic in some way. He might have been controlling, he might have been obsessive, he might have been very deep, very introspective. He might have had a scorpionic career. He might have been an undertaker. One of my best friends in primary school, her father was an undertaker. I would love to actually check out her chart and see what it showed. But yes, undertakers, spies, researchers, surgeons, doctors, emergency workers, those sorts of things. Psychologists may very well have been the career of your father. If not, he may have just simply been quite a powerful man. Remember, Scorpio is power, and there might have been a deep sense of power. He could have been quite a polarizing character. Scorpio can be very polarizing. It's ruled by Pluto, and think about it, Pluto is the furthest planet in our assessment toolbox in astrology. It's the furthest planet from the sun, and so it's the polar opposite of the sun, practically. So in that sense, we've got this polarity playing out. So he could have been a very polarizing kind of personality. He might have been involved in crime or the underworld in some way. Or he simply might have had an interest in mysteries or dark themes or trying to get to the bottom of things. You know, maybe he had a stack of books by the bed all about the JFK shootings, and he's trying to understand what really happened and he's trying to get to the bottom of it. He just might have been really intrigued by those sorts of things. It's also possible in the shadow side that he might have been drawn to horror movies and dark crime and obsession with serial killers, that kind of thing, you know, like just had to collect every Stephen King novel there was, you know, obsessive about some darker side of humanity. So that could have been present in the father as well. Now, what about if the sun is in the 8th house? Well, this is a very common position for astrologers to have now. And the more planets you have in the 8th house, the stronger your competence will be and your understanding will be of astrology. Because, of course, astrology is one of those sciences where we have to dig and research and get to the bottom of things to understand it. Astrology can also be very psychological as well. And there's a hidden occult sort of mystery about astrology. It's had to go underground for a couple of thousand years now because it hasn't been considered to be acceptable by the mainstreams. And when things are not mainstream, it becomes occult. That's what the word occult means. It means things that are hidden from mainstream understanding. So of course, if you have the sun, planet of career, planet of identification here, and planet of confidence here in the 8th house, well, you may very well identify very strongly with astrology and have a good understanding of it, a creative understanding and creative perspective on astrological topics. Once again, the sun in this position can mean there's quite a lot of polarization. People will either love you or hate you, you know, unfortunately with this position. But if they love you, they'll love you with their whole heart and they'll follow you till they die, you know. And there's this mystical charisma that a lot of people with the sun in the 8th house have. Now, of course, if you are an astrologer, that's going to mean that a lot of people are going to follow you and look to you for leadership in that field. And also, you might also turn a lot of people off and they may really not like your practicing of astrology. So it would behove you, if you have this position and you are an astrologer or anything else for that matter, to develop a thick skin, to really not care too much what other people think and just do your work that you've been put on this planet to do. Remember that the sun is divine intelligence, divine creativity, and so here in the 8th house, your divine creativity and intelligence is going to flow into 8th house things, such as astrology, but also anything to do with deep research, psychological understandings, managing money. You'll be very creative about how you do that. Legacies, creating legacies and wills, although this is really the house of receiving legacies and wills. But, you might be very creative about how you're going about leaving your own legacy, your own will, or creative with your approach to paying your taxes, which is an 8th house thing as well. So any of these 8th house matters will be benefited by the sun being here. Remember, the sun is where we create our own kingdom as well. So you might create your own kingdom of astrology. I'm just thinking which astrologers I know. I know Ernst Wilhelm has the sun in the 8th house, and he has created his own sort of, well, the only person I've come across who has his own brand of Vedic astrology, shall we say, in that he uses the tropical system with the ancient Parashara and Jaimini kind of insights. So, and he has his very good reasons for that, but he's created in that sense really his own kingdom based on his own research and understanding and digging deep. And I keep using astrology as an example. It's not the only example, but it obviously is pertinent to people who are interested in astrology. But you might create your own kingdom in fields to do with insurance, investigation, scientific research, mysteries of the universe. You might be the right person, like with the sun in the 8th house, to come up with some new insight around, a theory of the universe. I don't know, maybe precession. You come up with a new insight around the theories behind the idea of precession, or the idea of black holes or something, and you come up with some new insights and creative understanding that you create your own brand of understanding of mysteries and hidden information, let's say. You might work in fields to do with pharmaceuticals, surgery, crisis, change, upheavals, criminology, dealing with hidden money, secretive operations. Again, we mentioned those when we were talking about the sun and the sign of Scorpio. It also applies when the sun is in the 8th house, obviously. Now, the more that you experience crisis in your life, the more you're going to be able to tap into your sun strength. And sun strength, of course, is confidence, leadership, creativity. So you'll have a great ability to solve problems when crises come through your creative abilities, through your, standing up in a leadership position, through your confidence. And remember that wherever the sun goes, it illuminates things. So here in the 8th house, it's illuminating hidden secrets. It's bringing them to light. It's bringing to light solutions to crisis, solutions to problems. It's bringing to light deep psychological woundings even. You might be a very good sort of counselor type person, although the sun isn't really connected to counseling, but it is connected to illuminating things. So being able to illuminate the deep, dark depths of other people's lives, show them the truth, show them to, a revealing of what's going on deep within them, that could be a powerful quality that you can bring to the world. You also have the ability, so get into that deep diving, the ability to come to solutions for mysteries and hidden mysteries. And that's why Sun and the 8th house people often make really good detectives, because they want to search and find the answers, and they'll have a creative thinking approach that nobody else will have, that will help them to discover the answers to secrets and hidden mysteries. In Vedic astrology, the 8th house represents the family of your committed partnerships, because it's the 2nd house from the 7th. And so your partner's family might have a lot of solar qualities. They could be in leadership roles. They could be very kingly. They could be celebrities. They could expect that you should give them a lot of attention and appreciation and adoration in some way. Or they could just be very confident types of people. Remember that the sun is the father. We've talked about that in the sign of Scorpio, but in the 8th house, it might indicate that your father was involved in secretive things, or there was a lot of secrets around the life of your father, or your father's life was shrouded in secrecy in some way. You might not even know much about your father. The shadow side of this could mean that your father may have had connections to things like the mafia or the underworld, or money laundering or something, some sort of criminal side to your father's life that you maybe didn't know about. That's the shadow side. Not everybody will have the shadow side expressing, but it is possible with this placement. Remember, the father might also have had an 8th house type of career. We've talked about a lot of those sorts of careers already, so any of those would apply. And the 8th house is sexuality and sexual expression, the deep intimacy with others. And so it's likely that the father might have had quite a not a deviant sexual life, but a deep sexual life, a very meaningful sexual life. And he was probably quite a sexy man, mesmerizing and attractive to other people, especially the opposite sex. Now, the 7th house is the house of our death. So there are other houses too that have connections to that. The 8th house and the 12th house are houses of death in the Vedic system, and there's certain analysis that you can apply to try and figure out when it is that you will die. I don't do that for anyone, so please don't come for a reading for that. My ethics just do not permit me to do that. But the 8th house is the second from the 7th, which is a house of death. And the reason that is, I'll just explain, is that the 7th house sits exactly opposite the house of our life force here. So it's the furthest house away from our life force energy in the body. So it's the house of death. But the 8th house is the second from the 7th, and therefore it represents the conditions of our death. So with the sun here, you, especially as you get older, it doesn't mean you're going to die young, not at all, but it might mean that you need to care for your heart or your spine, because the sun rules the heart or the spine. It could be that, you die in your sleep through a heart attack, and you don't wake up again, and who wouldn't want to go quickly like that, quickly out of, and this is a house of quick change as well, so entirely possible. But yeah, heart attacks or spinal issues could be part of the source or conditions of your passing. And everybody has to pass. Everybody's got an 8th house, so it's applicable to everybody. What planets are there? Just to sort of put your mind at ease, because I'm talking about death and people get a bit edgy about that. But I have Uranus in the 8th house. Maybe I could die from an airplane crash or an electric shock, or preferably very quickly. Everybody has an 8th house and is obviously at some point going to die. So don't be upset by me talking about this. I want you to just understand how the astrology works. Of course, the sun is warm and it rules warm places, so you might die in a warm place. You might die in the center of the city, which is also ruled by the sun. The sun rules the center of things. You might die on a warm tropical island where it's midsummer or something like that, So the sun will indicate and have reference to the type of circumstances of death for you. Remember that the 8th house is a house of inheritance and the sun rules the father, so you are likely to receive some kind of inheritance from your father, and that could be financial, yes, but it could be characteristics, it could be a work ethic, it could be your creativity or intelligence that is a gift handed down, so to speak, from your father, some influence from the father on you that is your inheritance from him in a blessed way. We're not talking about difficulties here. Unless the sun is severely afflicted, and I mean like really afflicted, in bad dignity with only bad aspects. But most of the time the sun here will be giving blessings as an inheritance from a father figure. So that's our journey through the sun in Scorpio and the 8th house. I hope that this video was helpful to understand your chart, and do join me next week when we move into the 9th house and Sagittarius.